Let's go!
Everyone knows I got power.
LSU, did they just land their heir apparent to Braden Swinston? Mr. Jack Pyburn is physical. Watch this. Bam! Look at that tackle football play. And then to cut to the inside to also make the tackle. You'll see ends crash down and blow plays up like this, but actually just blow the guy up instead of actually make the tackle. Look, he's actually airborne and is able to fall forward and pick this guy up for the nice goal line tackle, and then on the next play, Florida would force a turnover. So obviously, Jack Pyburn makes a really big play right here. He sees a pulling guard and a pulling tackle, so he decides to close down. And once again, there could be a world where on this play he has contained responsibilities. It's really hard to say one way or the other, but whatever the case may be, he chases Dylan Sampson down from behind. And I want you to see how fast he pops back up. That's normally a pretty good sign of athleticism. He not only makes a tackle, look at this, smooth with it. This right here is by far my favorite Jack Pyburn rep. All right, there's so many different things I freaking love about this play. So the first thing here is Florida is in a lot of trouble on this play. Okay, so you'll see that they have a motion. They're trying to get lined up here. And you'll see at the snap that this DT has this A-gap filled. This in Pyburn, his job is to hold the edge right here. But notice, both of your backers are over on this side of the center, and the guy responsible for this B gap is a safety 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So Georgia is in a really good spot right here. They like their numbers to run this to the right side, and the safety is flat-footed here, okay? So watch what actually happens. I mean, this is really, really, really elite stuff, okay? So he peeks. Now, that's just how you teach it. Once again, this get-off could be a little bit lower, okay? But Pyburn, with his style, he likes to attack guys square after watching him a good bit. All right, and he peeks around the edge to see where the running back is going. Is he peeling off this way? So once he sees that this running back more than likely is going to go to the inside, it is so hard to cross face against someone that weighs roughly 50 pounds more than you. But that's exactly what he does. Notice he sticks with the block, stays square, and once again, you know, we talked about this last year a lot with this LSU defensive line. I'm not a big fan of defensive line penetration in the run game, especially if they are spreading us out, right? You can over-penetrate. So Pyburn does a good job keeping his heels on the line of scrimmage, crossing face back, and look at this play he makes. Bang, all right? It doesn't look like much, but if he doesn't make this tackle, this guy's getting through here clean. 3, of course, a really good true freshman back for them. And it's, you know, at least a few extra yards, maybe more. And that was such a good play. That's one thing I really like about him. It seems he really enjoys playing the run. All right, now, once again, it is interesting that he just happened to play a lot of quarterbacks that don't actually ever pull this. So if this gets pulled, you know, you're giving yourself up a lot of yards. So, you know, Florida this year, they didn't play a murderer's row of true dual threat quarterbacks, but it's still really good run fitting. And I know this will come off as so freaking cliche, but he is relentless. I mean, he loves chasing plays down, whether it's at the line of scrimmage or wherever. And you'll see that this play almost goes for a big one. Let's just say this tackle isn't made. Jack Pyburn is potentially making a touchdown saver right here just because he read that screen. It's good stuff. This will be the play that'll get LSU fans really excited. Okay, obviously Marcel Reed, the guy that ended our season here. Watch him keep contained on this edge. Remember, we've been talking about in this film study him, you know, just crashing down and making plays. Look at him take on this block. He's got such a good, strong initial punch. You'll see, you know, throughout this study that bang, bang, okay? Then he sees that this is actually a quarterback sweep out here, just a little run to the outside. He crosses face, does a good job chopping that arm down and getting outside here. Does a good job by that contained defender to help out. And that's a really, really, really nice play. So Pyburn, more of a run fitter than a pass rusher. We'll get to that in a second. there are some instances, he's going up against, Trey Zune. He's a really good player here. This whole drive from Pyburn wasn't the worst. It wasn't the best either. He almost made a fourth down stop on the play before this. Sometimes with this peaking, he can get a little guessy, right? So he's feeling that this play is going to the inside when he needs to stay outside on this leverage. So he loses his contain trying to get in there to make a play when those guys are already fitting it. And guess what? You give one of the best running backs in the SEC the edge. It ended up being a good enough play from one here. But if he doesn't shoestring him, this is a big gainer. So you have to be careful with that. And yeah, as a pass rusher, once again, they asked him to drop back into coverage. He's going up against one of the better left tackles. I also, let's see. So here he is going up against one of the better left tackles. And once again, with Marcel Reed, you can't be as aggressive as a pass rusher. But there's still a lot to his pass rush game that probably needs work. I do think there is an asterisk next to it, and we'll talk about that right now. So one thing that makes him a semi-difficult eval as a pass rusher is they did ask him to drop back into coverage a lot. This is something that LSU did some with Braden Swinson. Obviously, Matt House did a little more with this. I'm not the biggest fan of having your rushers drop back into coverage, but I understand why you do it some of the time. So his pass rush numbers can be very misleading. I spoke to a Florida source as well that said there was a lot of him dropping back into coverage reps. And, well, you see, it looks bad since he was on the field for a big gain, but there was really nothing he could do about that. All right, let's get to a pass rush rep versus Florida State. Here's Pyburn going up against number 76, Washington. Once again, true freshman quarterback, so all of that really helps out in this spot. Now, the first thing that I want to point out here is Jack Pyburn on this play doesn't have the absolute best get off, right? It is a little high, right? Who gives a rip? Watch what he does after this, okay? He sees that Washington is beginning to lean, and once you get your shoulders this far over your knees, you're just going to fall over. It's just simple physics. You don't need to know the ins and outs of offensive tackle play. So watch what he does. With this right arm, even though the offensive lineman's engaged really well, he chops right here at this elbow. Bang. Okay? Really, really, really good stuff to then tightly turn this edge, and then watch him bring this right arm around to actually strip down. Okay? Notice that right here. Right arm, it didn't just go for the sack, like wrap him up. You put this right arm over the path of where he's actually throwing the football, and that forces this sack. Now, it did help that there was some rush on the other side as well, but Jack Pyburn, of course, forcing this turnover in a rivalry game at the end of the season.
When I came here, I looked like a plank. I was stiff. I'm just going to be honest. I couldn't move well.
So, if it's in your heart's desire, please drop a donation. Venmo Cash App goes a long way. Shout out to LSU, TAF, Bayou Traditions, and everyone else for getting this done. And I'm going to give you my God's honest opinion on the big discussion when it comes to Pyburn, and it's actually off the field. There was a viral list of Pyburn demands that didn't make him look good. It really honestly made him look like a diva. But I understand it. I really, really, really did understand it because he was in a weird defensive end rotation at Florida. Ironically, this was not the best defense in the SEC, as many of you saw, but they were a good defense, and in particular, they were really good on the defensive line. And, he said in that interview that I just played a clip that he was obviously struggling to find his role. He said he was a plank. He was more of just kind of an off-ball linebacker in high school, and now he's an edge defender. Very interesting guy. One thing I really like about him is that he does seem to have a quality that a lot of other great LSU football players, I always think of Jaden Daniels when it comes to this, that he's really self-reflective, right? He takes coaching well. He's one of those guys that will say, hey, I'm not really that good at this thing. I really need to work on this thing to get to the level that I want to get. The PFF grades are fine. Obviously, as a pass rusher, as we've stated, kind of a weird eval with the defensive end rotation being the way that it is, and him playing, a lot on early downs, on running downs, so he didn't really get a lot of pure pass rush opportunities. But it's weird for a year 3 player for me to say, one that's played in all 3 seasons, that I don't think his best football has been played yet, because he's not really had that role just yet. Now, I'm not saying he hasn't played a whole lot. It's just been a weird situation, if you will. Look, I don't, and this has been a question I've been asked quite a bit. I don't know how much he was paid. I really don't. But the fact that LSU was willing to win, a few of these bidding wars here versus versus over the past few seasons is not only good because I think you got a darn good player. It's also just good from a PR perspective that we are open for freaking business. And that is a good thing if you're an LSU fan. I can understand you worrying about costs, and we talk about it all the time in our live stream schedules, cost-benefit analysis with every single recruit. But because we don't have any ledgers or salary caps or anything like that, it's impossible for us to know who costs, what our cap is, how much money do we actually have. The bottom line is, I would not be shocked if he's the best portal addition this entire class. He really does pop. And I do think with Swinson going to the draft, he could step in right away and be the best end. Now, LSU did bring in another end in Jamari Butler, who also has played a lot of football, multiple-year rotational guy. But, and if we get to his film study, he's kind of a weird eval as well in one way, because while Pyburn is labeled a defensive end, he rarely just got a lot of chances to rush as an end. The opposite is actually true for Jamari Butler. He was on the field for a lot of pass rush situations, but mostly exclusively as a 3-technique defensive tackle in race car packages, which we do a lot of. So his role in this offense will definitely be used on passing down. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these pieces fit. You still have Gabriel Relaford and a lot of very talented defensive linemen. But, man, I wouldn't worry too much about the portal demands, because I do think they were somewhat, even let's just say they might not even be true, but if they are true, it was somewhat justified, right? Now, this is where the conversation gets weird, and I understand Patreon, you can sign up, whatever. Go to the Patreon page. There is one massive, massive, massive red flag that nobody really wants to discuss, and I get it. And it's not necessarily with Pyburn, but with the college football transfer portal recruiting, and it does apply here in his weird circumstance. So if you want to see and learn all about that, every new Patreon sign up gets a Joe Burrow card in the mail. That is all linked down below. I would like to say, though, I do think he's the best player that we've brought in up to this point. Let me know what you guys think down below. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! And tonight we are doing pork chops. Let's go.